let's get into it. And this episode is gonna be so much better than the OG one. Man, it's already 13 minutes in and I probably only have about 2 minutes, not even, of actual shit I've said. And I actually hope it hits 30 minutes this time. I'm dilly-dallying, let's get into it. From the Guess Where I Am and Who I'm With podcast network, welcome to Thrills and Spills. We spill all the details from a thrilling travel battle, so you don't have to make the same mistakes as us and be prepared for anything on your next adventure. Alternating with our long-form duo episodes, this is Thrills and Spills, a 30-minute spill session separate from the Guess Where I Am podcast. If you're anything like me, you love a bit of background noise and some storytelling while you're cleaning the house, walking the dog, commuting to work. So sit down, or don't, but stay tuned for some thrilling tales. One thing I will mention that nobody would even notice, nobody would know, nobody even probably cares about, unless I said it, but I am re-recording this episode. And even though I haven't lived in New York in 7 years, I will always be a New Yorker. Living in the South for 6 years only gave me some Southern hospitality charm, the inability to not say y'all in every situation, and the road rage of a 50-year-old white dad trying to pick up his 7-year-old daughter from gymnastics during rush hour, during SEC season, trying to make it back in time for kickoff. The first recording of this episode, that was supposed to be 30 minutes, was barely even 13 minutes. Anywho, here we are. If you really needed me to clarify, I am by no means a lawyer or know anything about law, besides from the little bit that Louise has told me before recording this episode. However, in this case, I am the judge, the defendant, the plaintiff, the witness, but you, my friends, are the jury. Now to get into today's Thrills and Spills, logical versus spontaneous self. Let's set the scene like any court case starts with, right? Picture this, it's May 1st. It's the start of a 6-week backpacking trip with you and your partner. First stop, Japan. You land in Tokyo after a 9.5-hour flight from Honolulu. You've never been more excited to visit a new country, experience all the culture and food it has to offer. But you don't speak their native language. You're vegan, and you barely did any planning to the trip. Can you already see this going south? I'm trying not to be biased here and be a proper judge, but you would think it would actually go fine because we're backpackers, right? We land roughly around noon. We aren't in a huge rush to get anywhere anytime soon, so we explore the airport, because that's normal. Joe remembered the location of this very small vegan ramen shop, so we head over there. Now, I will say I was quite surprised that Joe was already this willing to conquer his fear of ramen in Japan. He told me a story that I won't share, but y'all are creative enough to kind of get the picture of this very rough experience he had with ramen last time he was in Japan. Here we are though, at a vegan ramen shop. Let's eat. After the ramen, we hobble over to the train station, which is in the airport, with our very full bellies. But let's take a break and jump back in time a little bit. Let's say about 2 months in March, okay? Following? Joe and I just got back from our 2-week trip in New Zealand with James, and we go back to working every day. Joe works day shifts as a travel agent, and I work night shifts as a bartender. Do we have any of the same time off? No. Can I complain? No. You know why? Joe's desk that he worked at was all of a 2-minute walk from our hostel room, in the front of our hostel. So you bet your bottom tail feathers I spent all day leading up to every single shift I had at the desk right next to him. Now I know what you're thinking. We probably spent all of this time sitting at his travel agent desk planning a backpacking trip. That's what he does for work, so let's do it, right? No. Joe read the entirety of the Harry Potter series while sitting at that desk, and I honestly couldn't tell you what I did during that time. I think I just sat there playing pretend travel agent. However, at some point, some semblance of planning occurred between Joe and I, and we booked our flights and our accommodation. Joe needed to leave Australia because his work visa was expiring and he needed to activate his travel visa. So his original plan was to go back to New Zealand. We were just there. His visa is still active. It's a quick flight. Why not? I'm selfish. That's why. I told him to come meet me in Hawaii after the end of my girls' week that I had with my mom and my sister. I mean, it was the same price, if not cheaper. So he books a flight to meet me at the end of my trip. The flight there was only $200, and now I can say he's been to Hawaii with his American girlfriend. Calm down. Calm down, jury listeners. I know. You're lost and you're confused on how this turns into a story of Joe and I in Japan. We're getting there, okay? Do you need me to draw this out for you, though? I'll run it by one more time real quickly. So take notes. March. Joe and I are working constantly. We just got back from New Zealand. We're trying to save money. But sometime in March, we booked some flights for Joe to come meet me in Hawaii to activate his visa while I'm on my girls' trip. Skip to the last week of April. I'm in Hawaii with my mom and my sister. 5 days later, Joe flies out. Judge Anna, hold on. I'm holding, okay? That's why you've waited this long. I know I still haven't talked about booking our 6-week trip. Okay? So during the planning that Joe and I did while booking flights, we ran into some complications. To fly to Hawaii from Australia was $200 Australian dollars. To fly back to Australia from Hawaii, over $1,500. No, thank you. No, ma'am. So, let's have some long layovers and make a trip out of this, why don't we? Here's what we found. Honolulu to Tokyo, $200. 4 days later, Tokyo to Manila, another $200. So good so far. 12 days later, Manila to Sydney, $400. Now, if you're following along with a calculator or just great with quick math, we just saved $700. But if you're doing the math and you realize that, Anna, this isn't 6 weeks. What are you on about? Where's a 6-week backpacking trip? Calm down. We spent the last 3.5 weeks going up the coast of Australia. Okay? Not a part of the story. No more questions. Stop. Now that we have the shortened backstory out of the way, let's get to the case. Spontaneous past Anna is defending herself while logical present Anna is taking spontaneous past Anna to court. Now we also have Joe, as mentioned, our lovely British boyfriend, just as innocent, just as guilty. I'm not biased. So we have 4 days in Japan, but 2 of those days are really spent traveling, so we have to make sure to squeeze in all of the hot spots. Why not take the bullet train down to Hiroshima, spend the night, then the next morning visit the A-Dome, then head back to Tokyo and spend the last 2 nights. Logical present Anna, you may now speak. Well, have you booked the bullet train, looked into the time you'd arrive in, or done any research about Hiroshima? I mean, you are vegan and in a country that eats a lot of fish. You don't speak Japanese. Those 2 weeks of Duolingo aren't gonna help you. Spontaneous past Anna. No, we haven't booked the bullet train, or looked at what time we're arriving, or looked at anywhere to eat. We booked our accommodation, and we're staying at a pod hotel, so bucket list check. And you can book the bullet train the day of, so why stress about it beforehand? Plus, we have Google Translate and a SIM card, so we'll be fine with translating and communication. Plus, the bullet train takes a few hours to get to Hiroshima, so we'll use that time to look at where we'll eat. Let's rewind back to the part of the story where Joe and Anna were exhausted and full from the ramen that they ate in the airport. They strolled themselves up to the ticket counter. 2 tickets to Hiroshima, please. I'm pausing for a dramatic effect here. The ticket lady slides us a sheet of paper with a bunch of translations on it in multiple different languages and currencies. $200 Australian dollars each way. More silence. Right. Because why wouldn't a train traveling over 500 miles that usually takes 10 hours to drive, but is only taking 4 hours, not cost that much? Well, we already booked our accommodation. The Shinkansen bullet train leaves in 20 minutes, so we might as well go. Take my money. Take it. I didn't want it anyways. No, yeah, don't worry. Don't worry. Logical present Anna is not loving the fact that we just spent $400 on our first day for the 6-week trip. But you only live once, as they say. And it's always been a dream of mine to ride the Shinkansen. I mean, I probably would have been fine just watching it go by. We're here. We're backpackers. We hop on. No, we don't hop on, actually. Matcha break, part 2. You know, it was also a dream of mine to buy some fun drinks and snacks out of those vending machines that Japan has everywhere. So Joe and I get a drink and we head onto the train. We find our seats, we get comfy, open our drinks, and mine has a really interesting texture, but I take a sip nonetheless. It reminds me of Jell-O in a water bottle. Logical present Anna takes over, connects to the Wi-Fi, and Google Translate the ingredients. It has gelatin in it. It is quite literally a Jell-O drink. And for those of you who don't know what gelatin is, it's animal collagen. Essentially ground up animal bones, animal cartilage, and tendons. It's not vegan, okay? Joe will, however, make fun of me because I, myself, didn't know gelatin wasn't vegan until December of 2023. This isn't December of 2023, this is May of 2024. Well, there goes that bucket list item. What the fuck am I saying? How many times am I gonna say, well, there goes that bucket list item? Well, there goes that, no, literally wasn't. Now I'm getting in my head. More matcha. Well, there goes that bucket list item for spontaneous past Anna enjoying a funky drink from a Japanese vending machine. She's not only down $400, but now a refreshing bev. Like spontaneous past Anna said they would do, Joe and Anna spend the time on the bullet train looking at places to eat in Hiroshima. And we found a vegan restaurant right around the corner from our pod hotel. After the bullet train, we had to hop on a bus to get to our pod hotel in the part of town we were staying at in Hiroshima. Where does the bus drop us off? Right outside the vegan restaurant. Maybe the stars are lining for us. No, they're not. Getting ahead. Spoiler. The doors are closed. The lights are dim. It's 8 p.m. But they aren't supposed to close until 9 p.m. So we walk in. No one is in there. After poking our heads around the corner, somebody finally emerges from the kitchen. Clearly scared by our arrival, they are hand signaling that they are closed. Great. We leave. Well, there goes that. We're not entirely starving yet, so we make our way over to the hotel, but on the way we pass the 7-Eleven. How cool. I've always wanted to go to a Japanese 7-Eleven, but that'll wait, that's noted. We can go another time during the trip. I mean, we are carrying 50 pounds of luggage, and I'm not trying to carry it for longer than necessary. While at the hotel on Wi-Fi, we check to see if there's any other restaurant we could eat at. There isn't, so back to 7-Eleven. There has to be something we could eat there, right? After strolling our merry little selves over to the 7-Eleven, it's everything I ever imagined. A typical 7-Eleven, but everything's in Japanese. Their fruit is individually wrapped in plastic, and they have a giant wall of sushi. But I wanted to have fun, and I wanted to look around and see what this 7-Eleven has to offer, so I was trying to translate these snacks, because you never know what countries are going to put in things. You don't want to remind me of what happened on my flight back from New Zealand with Pringles. Yeah, please don't. Please don't. But after attempting to Google Translate multiple snacks, spontaneous past Anna realized she bought the wrong data pack. Once again. She bought it for Australia, not international travel. So here we are. It's 9 p.m. The exhaustion is finally starting to kick in. There's nobody else in the 7-Eleven besides the cashier who doesn't speak any English. We're starting to get hangry. So what would any American do in a pickle like this situation? Grab bread, peanut butter, and jelly. Of course. Let's indoctrinate my British boyfriend into American culture while in Japan, why don't we? I would also like to paint the picture for you that this loaf of bread isn't a typical loaf of bread. It's some thick bread, and it's only 5 slices of bread individually wrapped. And although their bread might be American sized, their peanut butter and jelly is not. We found a tiny little pot of peanut butter and a very cute, very small jar of jam. We get back to the pod hotel and we can finally eat. There's no cutlery. The only thing in this kitchen is a coffee machine and a water filter. However, next to said coffee machine, there were stirring sticks to stir some sugar into your coffee. Naturally, we grab a few to make some makeshift knives. We don't end up eating in the kitchen because there are already some few interesting characters in there. So we go back into our private pod room, which is 3 feet wide by 5 feet. We sit on the floor and we start to make our peanut butter and jellies. Joe opens the bread, I open up the peanut butter. I'm pausing again for dramatic effect here because this peanut butter is quite light. I don't know about you, but I've never seen any anemic peanuts. That superpower finally decided to kick back in. This isn't vegan. But let's fact check. We're back on Wi-Fi, so let's Google Translate. Yeah, we bought peanut flavored cream. First ingredient, milk. We move. It's 9:30, maybe even 10 p.m. and nothing else is open. Even if we did go back to the 7-Eleven, it's a 20-minute walk there and back. No, thank you. So here we are. We eat those 5 thick slices of bread with a tiny spread of jam, and miraculously, the jam didn't have any gelatin in it. I'm not complaining at this point. We're sitting on the floor of this pod hotel in Japan after spending $200 each in transportation. We're backpackers, right? This is the life. This is the life. Jury listeners, it is up to you. Do you think spontaneous past Anna should have listened to logical present Anna and planned and done a bit more research prior to the trip, especially as her and Joe do live pretty strict lifestyles as vegans? In my opinion, as Judge Koke, spontaneous past Anna should have listened to logical present Anna and done a bit more research on the transportation in Japan, the food in Japan, made sure she bought the right data pack, ensuring that Google Translate was always at the ready. And I would love to say this lesson was learned in just one day, but it wasn't. And spontaneous past Anna encountered plenty more thrills while backpacking. But it's a good thing I have you, jury, to listen to these thrills and spills. To wrap up the case, I would like to emphasize the importance of planning when necessary. To some, what happened to Joe and I on our first day of our 6-week backpacking trip would have been nothing but a hiccup. But to 2 vegans on a budget, it wasn't just a hiccup. This wasn't even the first time I bought the wrong data pack extension as well. It happened as I was leaving Bali, and I was convinced I bought the right one this time. So I truly did think I was prepared in that case, but clearly I wasn't. And Telstra's app is sneaky and tricky with making you buy data packs you don't need. I'll pass the blame on that one. But next time you are planning to go to a new country, even if it is an English-speaking country, please do some research. Plan the basics, plan the transportation and the accommodation, and if you're vegan, gluten-free, vegetarian, or just live any kind of uncommon lifestyle, look into food options and don't just double check your data pack, quadruple check it. Thank you so much for tuning into the first episode of Thrills and Spills, where we discussed spontaneous versus logical self. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Guess Where Podcast, and now YouTube and Pinterest, also at Guess Where Podcast. I'll see you in 2 weeks when co-host Louise and I are back in action with a long duo episode. See you then, jury. Side note for you non-viewers, because the viewers know this, but I'm in fact drinking matcha, as you probably hear my ice jingling. I'm channeling the Japanese spirit. for this episode. I miss the food. Well, the vegan food, that is. Okay, bye.